You're tuned in to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Welcome back to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast, where we are building connections, showcasing the impressive, and inspiring movers and makers. I'm your host, Lenore, and this episode is brought to you by Refine & Clean, a unique hand sanitizer by Health Fairs Direct. You won't find a better pedigree for hand sanitizer anywhere else. So on today's episode, we're going to learn how to navigate and prosper through business and life challenges with the help from Joe Apfelbaum, the CEO and founder of Ajax Union, a B2B digital marketing agency located in Brooklyn. Joe will share his expertise on building relationships and how to set your company up for success. Joe Apfelbaum, welcome to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, Joe, I need to know, how do you bring entrepreneurs from frustration to motivation? I feel like that's a key point today.
Yeah, I think that people need to realize that if you're not hydrated, you can't get motivated. You got to take care of your body first. Whenever somebody says that they're frustrated, what I tell them is, if you follow your frustration, it will lead you to your greatest fear. And when you overcome your fear, that's when you can have anything you want in your life, when you're overcoming your fears, because your greatness is right past your greatest fears. So that's what I work with people, talking to them about, okay, you're frustrated at something because something is really bothering you. You want more. You're hungry. So I love helping hungry entrepreneurs go from frustration to motivation. And when I see people that are living a life that they don't really want to be living, they want to be living a better life, then I just basically say, all right, instead of looking at outside at all the things you don't have, because people believe, oh, if I had this, then I'd be happy. I asked them, how are you being? You're not a human doing, you're a human being. So what's going on with your being? And if you can get into yourself and figure out what's really going on with you, then you can start creating the right thoughts and the right actions, and you'll be able to have a better life.
What do you find is actually the biggest obstacle that entrepreneurs come to you with? Like, Joe, I need you to help me overcome this one.
Well, usually it's with the symptoms. They're not dealing with the source of the problem. They're dealing with the symptoms. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I don't have energy. I'm not making enough money. My relationships suck. I just don't have enough abundance in my life. I feel like I'm stuck in the day-to-day. And what I often tell people is, whichever one it is, whether it's your financial situation, whether it's your relationships, your own self-confidence, your spirituality, whatever area of your life is lacking, it's all interconnected together. We are one human being. It's not like, talk about work-life balance. You want to balance it out perfectly. There isn't a perfect balance that applies to everybody. Success is very individual. And if you're comparing somebody else's success to your own success, you're going to end up failing, because when you do get to that goal, when you do get to that level of success, you're going to realize that it's not your success. Your success is very, very different. So you got to figure out what you really want in your life. And most people have no idea what they want. Often what they're pursuing is what their parents wanted. They're pursuing it what the Joneses wanted. They're pursuing it whatever everyone else wants, and that's why they're never really satisfied. So before you plan out your life, you first have to dig deep into your own purpose, figuring out, okay, what is it that who am I? What is my purpose? What are my values? Most people haven't even identified their own core values, their personal core values. And when I did that work, I started realizing that I don't have to create a brand. I just have to discover my personal brand.
Yeah, can you enhance upon that? How did you get from your frustration to your motivation and running so many successful companies and businesses, especially Ajax?
Yeah, so for me, it was about discovering who I really am. Before I started working with my branding coach, the first thing that I did was I started looking around and saying, okay, how do I create a great brand? For a company, you could create a great brand, but for your own personal brand, how do you do that? And so I started researching and taking a look at other great brands. And what I noticed is that they actually didn't create that brand. And I spoke to many people that wanted to create a brand. Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, all the people out there that have these amazing personal brands, they didn't create their brand. What they did was they discovered their brand, and they decided to become authentic and true to who they really are. So then I had to ask myself a question, okay, so if I'm not going to create a brand, I'm going to discover the brand. How do I do this self-discovery process? How do I figure out who I really am in order for me to be more complete, in order for me to be able to show up with more freedom and with more power to be able to unleash other people and help other people? I have to come from a place of completion, not from a place of neediness. And so what I had to do is figure out, okay, what are my strengths? Because I'm always focused on my weaknesses. But to every weakness, there's also the opposite of the weakness, which is a strength, because your strength actually creates your weaknesses. So I started inspecting what my strengths really were and how I was using them in my life in a good way and in a way that wasn't necessarily empowering me. And then I also take a look at what my core values were. Okay, so I had to do an exercise to figure out my own core values and figuring out why they are my values and what I value about them and how do they show up in my life and who are the people that help me be able to live my best life that resonate with these values and the people that maybe don't resonate with these values and I end up having conflicts with them. And then I had to also take a look at my why. Why do I do the things that I do? And I went through a whole process of identifying my why. And there are 9 different whys that you can work through to figure out, okay, what's your own why? And then once I started doing all these exercises to figure out my values, my strengths, my why, and a few other exercises like my agreements, I started realizing that something was emerging. It was a brand, an identified brand that had specific vocabulary, specific language around the brand. And language is the key to differentiate me and anybody else. To figure out my unique selling proposition, it's all based on the messaging, the language. And once I figure out what my language is, how I define myself as unique in my own head and to the whole world around me, I started realizing, okay, this is who I am. And I started becoming comfortable with who I am. And once you're comfortable with who you are, you start attracting the right clients. You start attracting the right employees. You know, when you start being yourself, really being yourself, there are certain people that are going to have an allergic reaction to you. That's what it is. That's what you want, because the people that have an allergic reaction are going to be repelled and repulsed by you, and they're going to leave you alone and run away. But what's also going to happen is all your fans, all your followers, all your lovers are going to come out of the woodwork, and they're going to be attracted to you. People are attracted to a rock star that shows up and gives everything they have on stage, not to the rock star that's afraid, that's ashamed, that's scared, that doesn't want to insult anybody. They don't care. They're unapologetic. They get up and they are just truly themselves. And that's what people love about seeing those rock stars. So when I see a rock star online, I'm like, wow, this person, I really connect with their level of authenticity. And that's what I strive to be, a person that could just be, that could just flow and not worry about the opinions of other people, because I learned through my process of self-discovery and personal development that the opinions of other people are really none of my business. And there are people that are going to have opinions, whether they like me or don't like me. I just need to be able to deliver my message, be true to myself. And that's how I'm going to continue to build this company and many other companies.
I couldn't have said it any better. That was actually spoken straight from the heart as a real role model. So is there anybody who do you look up to? Because you just mentioned a couple of different rock stars, but didn't give names.
Yeah, so for me, there are many different people that I look up to. So in terms of, like, for example, my morning routine, one of the things that I had to establish in order for me to be able to feel more confident, to feel more complete, and feel more empowered is figure out my morning routine. So there's a guy named Hal Elrod. He wrote a book called The Miracle Morning. And I found him early on when he only sold like 10,000 copies of his book. And I spoke to him and he was like, dude, how'd you build your business? I got on his podcast. Now he has hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers now, because the impact that he's making in the world by teaching people how to create a morning routine. And I already started working on my own morning routine, but he helped me really be able to systemize that with his book. And since then, he's written several books about the miracle morning and how the morning really shapes your life and so on. So he was a pretty big role model for me in terms of that. There's a guy named Nathaniel Brandon. He wrote a book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. And if you don't have self-confidence, if you don't trust yourself, nobody else is going to trust you. So why should they trust you if you don't even trust your own self? So I had to learn what that means. What's self-efficacy? What's self-acceptance? What are the 6 pillars of self-esteem? So I kind of consider him my mentor in the world of self-esteem. Then there's the world of purpose, of finding a purpose, the meaning of a person. There's a man named Viktor Frankl who went through the Holocaust. And I consider the authors of the books that I read, whether it's Napoleon Hill or whether it's Stephen Covey or whether it's Tony Robbins with the Awaken the Giant Within, these are the people that I consider my mentors because I feel like I spent many, many hours with them reading their book, and they've been able to mentor me in that way. That's one of the things that I learned from Think and Grow Rich, that you can have mentors and guides and people that you can speak to, even if they're not around, by reading their literature, by reading their teachings that they spent a lifetime writing and creating and disseminating. And so I'm a student of the books, and I do the work, and I join the courses, and I absolutely love keeping the progress up. I don't know if you know this, but there's a concept called progress, which is completely correlated to happiness. Most people are searching for happiness. But once you get happiness, you're no longer happy because you ask yourself, is that all there is? Yeah, I just got happy. I got my vacation, I got my money, and now I'm done. No, what actually makes us happy is the progress, the continuous progress of getting to somewhere. The journey and progressing along the journey is where we find happiness. And that's also where we find that frustration and unhappiness when we're going the wrong way, when we're regressing in life. Instead of progressing in life, we feel the opposite of happiness. We feel frustration and anger because we were just building this beautiful Lego, like with my kids, right? We're just building it, and then the other kid comes and just knocks the whole thing down. That's the opposite of progress. Unless, of course, you change your perspective and you're like, wow, now we get to build something else.
So what advice do you actually have for businesses, entrepreneurs, and companies right now during this time of whatever we're going through on how they can really prosper and push through?
Stop being so transactional. If there's one thing that you can do in today's day and age, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a dry cleaner, whether you're a consultant or a professional or a coach, stop thinking of tit for tat. Stop thinking about the way things used to be, the cold call, the SEO. All that stuff worked back in the day when people could hide behind their companies. But today, you need to let the world know who they can trust. In the world where there is more transparency than ever before, and people can't get away with the abuses that used to be rampant and still is often rampant, but it's much more open right now when there are those abuses of power. So right now, what I would say is get more transformational, get more relationships, start building a relationship with the people that, right now people can't really go to restaurants the same way they used to. But if you have relationships with your clients, what's going to end up happening is they're going to order from you. They're going to do more takeout from you. And when they have options, which now it's people can order from anywhere because they have Uber Eats and all that stuff. It's not like, there's no limit to deliveries anymore. People can order through, same day delivery stuff from anywhere. And so the options and the competition is so much more. So the way that you compete in today's economy is by developing your own personal brand that nobody can replicate, and by building relationships with your customers in a deeper level. People during a pandemic, during a difficult time, they turn to the people that they trust. And so if you're not a person that has taken the time to network, if you're not a person that has taken the time to really get to know your customers and your prospects and the people in your life, now's a great time to get in touch. Now's a great time to go deep. Now's a great time to figure out, okay, who's actually being affected and who's actually thriving. Believe it or not, there are plenty of people that are thriving right now. Yeah, sure, there's a 20% unemployment rate or whatever that is, but that just means that 80% of people are still employed. People don't look at the other side of the coin. There are plenty of people that are doing really, really well in certain industries, and then there are industries that are completely decimated. The world is changing, and as the world changes, you need to start adapting to what's going on. And for me, what I see is building relationships and stop being so transactional is going to be the key.
Now, I know I'm glad you mentioned the networking because I know you are huge on that, as well as LinkedIn. So how important is it for business to business professionals to be on that specific social media site?
So what I always tell people is that if referrals are important to your business, then LinkedIn is extremely important to your business. We created a course that teaches people how to network on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the largest professional social network in the world. It's where people show up every single day, and it has the most millionaires that are engaged in conversations, that are engaged in checking out content, that are engaged in building relationships, and that are showing up. You want the attention of the right people, of your target market, and figuring out who those people are and connecting with them has never been easier than ever before. So if you're the type of business that relies on referrals, then LinkedIn is probably the best place for you to spend your time right now. It's very easy to get followers on LinkedIn. It's very easy to find the right people, and it's very easy to speak to them, get them on the phone, and then close business. For us, we've taught hundreds of people how to do this year alone. And we had one guy before the pandemic, he came to us and he said, Joe, I lost 100% of my clients. What do I do? I said, I looked at your LinkedIn and you're missing the proper profile. You're not really posting content. You're not doing all the things that you need to be doing. So he purchased the course, he took the course, and he implemented the course. He just called me a few weeks ago and said, Joe, I am pleased to tell you that I have filled up 100% of my pipeline, because I asked him, why aren't you coming to our coaching sessions? And he's like, I don't have time for more clients right now. I need to figure out how to grow my business in a way where I can now expand, because I used your method of LinkedIn, of using LinkedIn properly. And now I am 100% at capacity during a pandemic, which is unthinkable. I am indebted to you forever and ever and ever, because if this works during a pandemic, for sure it's going to work when things reopen and when things, so I need to figure out how to really expand my company now, hire employees and all this stuff. And so what I tell people is, if you're not actively networking right now, you're missing out. But the reason you're not networking is not because you're stupid. It's not because you don't like networking. No, it's because you have fear. And fear comes from a lack of preparation. Fear comes from a lack of knowledge. People that are afraid, it's because they don't know. You're afraid of the unknown. Networking is like public speaking. And you hear me talking right now, and I'm articulating much better than I articulated 20 years ago when I was afraid of public speaking. Much better than I articulated 10 years ago when I was actually afraid of networking and I didn't know it. I made excuses like, oh, I just don't network, or networking is weird, or networking is for losers, or I had all these excuses that were based in fear. So I always tell people, do you want reasons or do you want results? Because excuses are lots of reasons. I can give you a bunch of reasons why not to network, but give me some results. And results come from taking action. And if you start taking the right actions with the right strategy, because energy without strategy is a waste of time. I just see too many people doing things on LinkedIn and getting zero traction. But if you want to save a decade, because the right strategy will save you a decade, then maybe take a look at a course or 2 courses or read a book about this. So because the right strategy will save you tons of time and effort and energy, and that's where we come in.
Where can we find those courses? Because I feel like at least everybody needs to look at one.
Yeah, so we have courses on evergreen.com, evergreen.com. That's where we have our courses there. But if you just search for LinkedIn courses, there's so many out there. Ours happens to be very, very robust and very affordable. But there are many out there that you can find where you can learn, get the right frameworks, get the right scripts, get the right templates, the right checklists, and get the right coaching that will help you accelerate your knowledge. For me, where I started accelerating the most in my life is when I hired a coach. I was afraid of writing. I don't know if you know this, but I was really afraid of writing. But I hired a writing coach, and the writing coach helped me work through my self-limiting beliefs around writing. And now I write 2,000 words every single day. I wrote several books. And the only reason I was able to do that is because it took me 18 months for me to be working on myself to figure out, oh my gosh, the reason why I'm not a writer is because I don't write. I learned that from a different mentor, Stephen King. I'm sure you heard of Stephen King. He wrote a book called On Writing, and I devoured that book. It's one of his only books that's nonfiction, and it's very, very powerful. It's about his life and about the lessons of writing and all. He said, if you don't write 2,000 words a day, you're not a writer. You don't have the right to call yourself a writer. And that applies to all areas of life. You know, Michael Jordan was asked, what does it take to be the #1 player in the world? He's like, miss more. I missed 9,000 shots during my career. And that's why, because of all my failures, that's why I became the #1 player. If you want to be successful, you got to just do it. You got to just take action. And perfection is the road to failure. If you're trying to be perfect in life, have the perfect brand, have the perfect eyebrows, have the perfect everything, don't wait for perfection, because perfection will never come, because you're always going to find something that's wrong with whatever it is you're doing. But the question is, can you take action anyway? Can you stumble? Can you fail? I saw Jerry Seinfeld. I took a stand-up comedy course, and Jerry Seinfeld at the end came to speak to us. And the student said, I'm doing this for 3 years and I feel like I'm totally bombing. He's like, you're not even a fetus yet. You haven't even gotten started. He's like, I do this every single day for 40 years and I'm still learning how to be better at stand-up comedy. He's like, you want to be great? You got to commit to it. You got to fall. I heard a professional juggler speak to us. He's the president of the National Speakers Association. We have 4,000 professional speakers that are part of our association. And he said, you want to learn juggling? Don't count how many balls you caught. Count how many balls you dropped. He's like, I want you to drop 1,000 balls a day. I was like, wow, that's really dropping the ball. Like literally dropping the ball. So you really have to drop the ball, but get back up. That's the key. Somebody recently asked Muhammad Ali, said, how many push-ups do you do a day? Because it seems like you're doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of push-ups. He's like, I don't start counting till I feel pain.
Joe, you are truly so inspiring. I got to tell you. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for all of your words of wisdom. If you want to connect to Joe, feel free to reach out to him on LinkedIn as well. Also, evergreen.com. And you can also reach out to him on his website too, joeapfelbaum.com, JoeApfelbaum.com. Joe, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This was great. Boom.
Now that's a wrap on another episode of the Brand Ambassador Select podcast. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. More at brandambassadorselect.com, and we will see you next time.